Well, welcome back to Prof E Plays. I'm Prof E, and we are going to be starting up a new uh, Cepheus campaign here. Uh, so this is really just kind of introductory stuff, trying to create our characters and all of that, talk about what we're doing and where we're going to be doing it, and so on. So that's the purpose of this, I guess, episode 0 of sorts for this campaign. Right, so first, some of the tools that I'm going to be using. So I did get from Zozer Games this solo that I've been using before. I used it for, say, the Wilbur Orla campaign. And actually, it was that campaign that convinced me that I really just kind of need a fresh start when I try a new style of campaign, because there I had characters that were extremely unsuited for the campaign that I was running. So that's okay. So I will be using this. From that, I specifically am looking at the Star Traders campaign, right? So I like to have a paper copy of what I'm using if I'm going to be using it extensively, and certainly that's the case here. So Star Traders, the type of campaign that we're running. So I just printed this off from the PDF of that Zoser supplement. Now, I like Cepheus Universal. I have used it before. I'm comfortable with it. But I was playing around some with the trade rules under that approach, right, to the Cepheus system. And I was not happy with it. I think like they've streamlined trade a lot, which on the one hand can be really good if you want trade to just kind of be in the background. But on the other hand, if you are running a campaign literally where the style is called Star Traders, you might want to have a more robust trading system. All right, so for that purpose, I am going to be using Cepheus Lite, right? So Cepheus Lite is what I'm going to be using for most of the system stuff, right? So things like how does travel work? I'm gonna have to tweak things a little bit, but so how does travel work? How does trade in particular work? So those are what things that I'm working from here. Okay, this one, uh, I honestly don't. I don't know if it's possible to still get this book in a printed format. It might be. It might be. The way that I got this, okay, it looks like it was printed by Lulu. Look at this right there. Right there's the Lulu um, imprint or whatever. The way that I got this was from a used bookstore. It's Went to half price books. I like to look at their RPG section because you can sometimes find good stuff there. And this just happened to be there. I was interested in the system at that point. So I'm like, oh, sure, I'll pick it up. Right. Although I will say, so Cepheus Lite is heavily based on the system reference document, which you can get for free. Um, the big stuff that it changes, it does change some of how characters are created. It limits the number of character types to some degree. That's the main thing. And there are some parts here where it's obvious that they just kind of took the system reference document, right, copy pasted, and then changed some stuff. And sometimes when they did that, they took out some things, but not other things that refer to them, which is kind of amusing. I was looking at, where was it? It was in here. Oh, right. Here we go. So, when they're talking about interplanetary travel, they have a statement here that says, instead, you may use the formula given below for more exact calculations. And there, there is no formula in this book, right? So, in any case, right, that's all right. But they do have more or less the complete right trading rules, which is really the thing that I need from that. All right. Then, so those are the main tools, and I will also, though, be using Cepheus Universal for character creation, so that's going to play a big role today because I want to have my character creation only be semi-random rather than totally random, because again, I want my characters to actually make sense, right, in the type of campaign that we are in, right? So that's kind of a big thing there. All right, and I think that that wraps that up reasonably well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to work. So the first thing I want to do is, oh, I need a ship, right? So for my ship, oh wait, let me talk about the campaign format first. So what I've decided I'm going to do, I'm going to have, I've already picked the ship, so I will talk about this. Uh, One thing that I've learned is that I like having a game where there is a specific overarching goal, which I may or may not achieve. That way I know whether I've done it. It gives me something to aim for. And I also like when there's a time limit. Right. So what I think I'm going to do is here. I've not created the captain yet, but what I'm going to decide is that the captain is also the owner of the ship, so they do not take a salary. Instead, they are just kind of earning whatever profits happen to be made, right, would fall to them, right, as owners of the ship. Now, it might be that it's going to be like, partial ownership of some of the cargo or something like that, depending on what kind of money our crewmates have. It might be somebody else has more money or something. But at the very least, we're going to have the captain is trying to earn a profit, right, with his ship, and is at the end of the 6 month trial period is going to decide, right, does it make sense, right, for him to continue operating as an independent captain? In other words, is he earning roughly as much as he could earn as a captain for somebody else, just from just a salaried captain, right? Or is he obviously doing worse? And one way that things could end early, because I like the idea of that, sometimes when you lose before the end, right? So it might be, yeah, we come to the end of 6 months, we do the calculations, find out now they didn't actually make that much money, or it might be that, say, one, obviously they could die partway through, right? Or it might be that partway through they just go bankrupt. So like it's obviously didn't do as well as being on salary, right? So there are kind of a couple early outs that can happen here. All right, so let's get into this then. All right, so from Cepheus Light, I'm going to be taking just one of their stock ships because I'm not feeling like I want to design a ship from scratch. All right, so we're going to use just a stock ship. Okay, so here we go. The class of it, this is a trader. It's 200 ton. Right, so class trader tonnage 200. Uh, all right, armor none. It's an unarmored ship. Its jump rating is a 2, and its maneuver is 2 as well. It's 2G thrust. Power plant is a B. How much fuel do they have? They have 44 tons, which is enough for one jump two and for 2 weeks of operation. So this endurance here would be 2 weeks. How much cargo space is there? Well, let's see, I'm just kind of working through here. The computer is a Model 1 BIS. So does it say something here about computer? It doesn't look like it does. No. All right, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. I guess I'll just come down here with fitting and equipment. So down here. So it's a Model 1 BIS computer. The BIS indicates that I don't remember what it stands for, but it indicates that you can do a jump 2 even with you can calculate with this model of computer. Armament, there are 2 tons reserved for weapon systems, but we don't actually have the weapon systems installed, right? So that is something that's important to keep in mind. Other fittings that are important, we do have 10 escape pods. We have 10 staterooms, of which 3 will be set aside for um, so it's the 7 for passengers. We have 20 low berths. That would be what you can use for um, like putting people in cryo sleep and so on. And then 53 tons for cargo. Now, other notes here, it says the crew. Um, Now the crew is going to take 5 people. We're going to have a pilot. All right, and I'm just going to do a pilot slash captain. Is what I'm doing here. A sensor operator. Now, this is something where I'm going to actually use the Cepheus Universal approach for this, and instead of it being a sensor operator, because they do a sensor operator slash navigator astrogator, I'm just going to do navigator. All right, engineer, a medic, and a steward. And the total cost of this ship, hardpoints, oh, I guess the hardpoints turrets, I do need to put here, they're 2 tons reserved. There. No drones, no small craft vehicles. All right, cool. And that, I think, is that for now. Cool. Now, when look at the campaign setup for Star Traders, one thing it says we want to create merchant characters. Now, I decided I wanted the ship first, though that actually makes this step three. But I wanted the ship first, mostly so that I knew which characters I have to have. So I know now that I have to have, right, these five characters. I need to have a pilot, captain, I need to have a navigator, an engineer, a medic, and a steward. So I'm going to go ahead and create those characters now. Now, I will want to flesh out some of this stuff because we do need to decide how we're going to handle costs. Right, so I'll talk about the different options there. Uh, I can just tell you it's going to be perfectly honest. All right, so let's go ahead and make some characters. So setting the ship aside, I will want to name it eventually, but I'm not worried about that just yet. Okay, so characters. So I'm going to use Cepheus Universal for character creation because it allows for the possibility of a designed character creation without stepping too far outside of um, the spirit, right, of that particular game. But I do want to do it semi-random, right? So that's how I'm going to approach this. It's a semi-random character creation process, right? So what I'm going to handle this semi-randomness is that I'm going to roll, right, for the various stats, right? But then I'm going to choose, right, the skills, right, based on the profession that I choose for each of them. So the first person is going to be our captain. So there's a rank and role. So the role here is captain slash pilot. And so keep that in mind. And then I want to determine their characteristics. So this is where I'm going to do just rolling them as we go. So that's a 10. Oh, that's really good for strength. Dexterity is a 4. Oh, that's not great for a pilot. 7 for endurance. So that their leadership makes up for it, right? 10 for intelligence. Although technically I should write 10 as an A, but whatever. Then education is a 7. A 7 just as an interpretation here. That indicates finished high school but did not complete the equivalent of a bachelor's degree. And the social standing is a 7, right? So generally fairly average for the most part. A little bit higher in intelligence, a little bit higher in strength, a little lower in dexterity. Then fleshing out the die modifiers. 10 gives us a +1 in the system. A 4 gives us a -1. And so it's a net positive 1 here. All right. So that was the first step that I wanted. Now, that's the randomized part. Next thing I want to do, well, I'm also going to randomize the life event as well, as that's something that is suggested, right, by Solo. So I'm actually going to pull up the full uh, sheet here. The full PDF. PDF, that's the word that I wanted for that. So that'll be loading. I need a name for the captain. Now, I'm terrible with names. So I'm gonna just see if I can find a random name generator, see if it can give me some names, right? And I'll pick something that makes sense, or at least seems reasonable to me. Um, because like I like the idea of like a human dominant, perhaps even human exclusive setting here. So I don't want to deal with a whole lot of aliens. Now we know I have decided that I do want to use the same um, setting as I used for my previous campaign, right? Except we're going to stay out of the unexplored sector in the more explored sector. So we're going to be using that. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. So for now, I just need a random name generator. There we go, random name generator. All right. And we're just gonna roll. Okay. Oh, and I also want a random surname as well. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. And give me several of them. 5 would be great. So generate a name. It's just behind the name.com is what I'm using. All right. Laurentina Orlath Sinclair. Actually, I kind of like Laurentina Sinclair. We're gonna go with that one. Laurentina Sinclair. I'm going to identify as female. There we go. So Laurentina is our captain. There we go. So we've got a name. We've got a gender assigned to them. Uh, Now, technically, we should be rolling on their appearance. So let's see what we can find out about their appearance. So the notable feature about them is they have a notable hat or cap. So I'm just going to make a note here. Notable hat. Right, so she has her captain's hat, which I'm going to try to. I'll try to flesh out some significance of that. Significance of education here again, finished the equivalent of high school, but not a bachelor's degree. Height and weight, right? So I'm going to go ahead and write these down as well. So height, it says multiply either strength or dex by 3. Oh, so we either either we're going to be really tall or really short. And then we also add a number to that. Uh, I think I'm going to make her on the tall side, right? So strength times 3, that'd be 30. So she's 174 centimeters. I suppose isn't like outrageously tall. Let me just get the conversion here. All right, so it's like 5'8.5". So it's like slightly taller than I am. All right. So as an American, I do 5'8.5 inches. And then weight, right? So if all three physical characteristics were under 7, but they're not, actually two of them are above, so she's not considered out of shape. So we do take 14 kilograms and add to that strength plus endurance times 4. So strength plus endurance, 17 times 4. I'm going to have to do some arithmetic here. 17 times 4 gives me 68, right? And then we add 14 to that. Right, so that'd be 82. Is that right? Yeah, that's 82. All right, so 82 kilograms, whatever that comes to. 82 okay, it's 181 pounds. And this is largely reflecting a 10 for strength. It is reasonably muscular. All right, so let's do that. Psych evaluations. What do you know about her? Psychology. 6, comically pessimistic, a touch paranoid. So pessimistic and paranoid. I guess comically, so I guess darkly pessimistic and paranoid. Okay, a touch paranoid, so I'm not going to overplay this. All right. Next step then. We've got our characteristics, rank. So now we know that we're going to have her. Okay, actually, that's something I need to do. I need to choose what her job would be, and that's where we get some skills. Oh, let's do age before I get there. Right, so 4, so she's somewhere in late 30s, early 40s. So I'm just going to say 40-ish. Exact age probably is not going to matter that much. Now we need to think about the kinds of skills that she needs to have and how we can get those skills right in the system. Right, so the first thing, obviously, she has to have. Oh, I just realized I'm frozen. There we go. Uh, so obviously, she has to have piloting skills, and leader skills would also be useful. So when I look at the various options for career tracks, a number of them offer pilot skills. Explorer would include pilot and also leader, so that might be a good way to go. What else offers pilot? Let's see, merchant offers pilot, but oh, we also need somebody that can negotiate. So I think so. We need pilot. Okay, so I'm just going to write down skills that I want her to have. So pilot, leader, and broker. Those would be 3 skills that I really think would be good for her to have. Um, Unfortunately, we can get pilot and broker, but getting leader added to that is going to be a challenge. Oh, except the bonus skill. Okay, the bonus skill, I can actually choose a leader, so she'd have just one level of that. Okay, so that makes sense to me. All right, so she gets a total of 6 skill points that she can assign, nothing being more than 3. All right, so if I'm going to choose, I'll choose the merchant class, which means her rank then, based on social of 7, would be. This is just giving a little bit of background. So she was the third officer. Right? So she definitely was not a captain before. All right, it might be why she decided to strike out and do this on her own. Right, so the available skills. So she automatically gets a 1 level of vac suit. Okay, so she has to take that. And then we have 5 additional skill points that we can assign between pilot, navigation, engineering, computer, comms, loader, broker. Uh, and again, I want her to be the captain pilot, so it makes sense to really focus more on the piloting, especially because she has low dex. So let's put 3 in pilot. Broker 2, that makes sense. Right, and then I get the 1 bonus skill, and one of the options for bonus skill is leader, so we can take that 1 point there. Okay, so that would be all of the skills. Excellent. So I think then I've got all the details that I need for her, the exception of the kind of the final details of like buying gear and the like. I'm not going to force that all on you to watch me do this, but I will want to roll up how many credits she has, and then kind of off screen I'll buy stuff. So 2 more things I'm going to do will be credits and life events. All right, so credits first. Multiply the social score, right? So 7 times a d6 times 500. Oh, we got super lucky. So we've got 6 times 7 would be 42, right? Times 500 would be 21,000. So 21,000 credits. There we go. So we have our captain here. Now, I want to know a little bit about her life. So I'm going to roll in the life event table that comes with Solo. Okay, this page 18. There we go. So the life event is just in the past you, something happened. And I'd like to tie this to her hat. So there's a challenge for it. So I got 22. So in the past you had to create a new identity for yourself, but why? Okay, so I'm just going to make here notable hat. So the hat must be part of her new identity. Like I want to say it's like a very stereotypically like a nautical captain's hat, like the captain of the Titanic, something like that. So I'm just gonna say is a stereotypical. Right, so stereotypical captain's hat is what's notable about this one. Now the life event. So this is where I want to write this down, and that is that had to create a new identity. Now to me the most obvious thing, right, would be a criminal background of some kind, right? So like we know that as a merchant, like she only would have been like third officer. So I think she stole the 21,000 credits, probably a little more, and so I don't have to deal with thinking about a down payment on the ship. Right, so I'm going to say that. So I'm going to say that she stole or embezzled or whatever, stole from her employer, right, to get all that money, to get the credits she has. Right, so this Laurentina Sinclair, that's not actually a real name. That is, in fact, I mean, it is a real name, I suppose, but it is not her original name, in that she changed it to protect the guilty, being herself. All right, so that is our captain, right, who is going to be trying to see if she can make it on her own, and also wants to keep her original identity a bit of a secret, because, yeah. All right. So there we go. So let's go ahead and move on to our next person here, which according to wouldn't be a property video if I didn't have to shuffle around all my papers to find it. So our pilot captain is Laurentina. We need a navigator. All right, so let's go ahead and create a navigator. Again, they're going to need a name. So I'll pull up my random name generator. Looking at the other names. Okay, I kind of like this one. Helios Michalski or Michalski. Yeah, let's do that. Helios sounds like it would be a reasonable name for somebody in a sci-fi setting to have. So Michalski. Okay. Or Michalski. I need to decide whether it's going to be a hard CH or a soft CH. Well, whatever. They're navigator. All right. So we have all that down. Okay. Now, very much like before, I want to flip through and walk through the process. We have their name. Helios to me sounds more masculine because it's Helios, not Helia. I don't know, it's the Greek or something. All right, so yes, I'm going to label them as men. What do we know about their appearance? Eight. Eight, so they have a notable shirt. Okay, the first thing I think of with that is Wash. From Firefly with his like Hawaiian shirts and the like. All right, so that's notable appearance. Now we gotta roll out our characteristics because we can't get height and weight until we do characteristics. Same with education. So 10 for strength. Well, we have a very strong party here. Dexterity, a 10 as well. Endurance is a 7, so not bad. Intelligence is an 11. Wow. You have like the navigator's a superhero. Education of 7. Okay, there we go. And 7 for social score. All right. So these are again, I think that even the 11 is also just a +1. Yeah. 9 through 11 would be +1. So +1 to strength, to dexterity, and to intelligence whenever I make a characteristic roll on those. Cool. Now this means again, in terms of education level, high school level education, more or less. All right, so let's go ahead and get the height and weight filled out. Height and weight, so remember we get the choice of using either strength or dexterity. It makes no difference here. Multiplied by 3, so we'd have 30 plus 154, so it's 184 centimeters. All right. Oh, but it does say to treat strength over 10 as 10. Well, it's not over 10. Cool. So we have 184 centimeters, which is going to be, what is that? I think it's just a little over 6 feet. If I'm right. Yeah, it's like basically 6 feet and like a half an inch, which is not worth thinking that much about. And then in terms of weight, I would take strength plus endurance would be 17, multiply that by 4. So I think it's the same as before. Yeah, it's the same numbers as before, so it's the same result as before. So 17 times 4 was, I believe, what was it? Yeah, just do it again. That's 68. So 68, and then we add to that for a male, it's a different number. So 68 plus 24 would make it 92 kilograms, which I think is just a little over 200 pounds, if I recall correctly. Yep. Yeah, so 203 pounds. All right, so we've got height and weight, psych evaluation. What do you know about his personality? 7, rebellious in nature, which often gets them into trouble. So rebellious gets into trouble. Okay, next step is see. I guess we can do. Well, we need to figure out what their age. Let's do 5. So also 40-ish. Now, what career did he come from? So navigation. Where does navigation? So does navigation? That is one of the skills merchants tend to have, right? So it would be possible that he could just be a merchant. That would actually make sense to me to have a merchant background. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and write that in. So first thing, navigation, make that a 3. I'm going to make the vac suit has to be at least 1. And then I get to pick 2 more points that go into pilot, navigation, engineering, computer, comms, loader, broker. I think it makes sense to me to have some computer and comms in this role. So I'm going to divide that up, computer 1 and comms 1. All right. And I think that is a reasonable approach here. Now, in terms of bonus skill, I don't really know what bonus skill I would want him to have. So I'm actually really tempted just kind of roll it and see what it would be. All right, so I have 2 tables. I have table A and table B. Table A would include carousing, leader, melee, and gun combat, vehicle, and streetwise. And then table B would be medical, electronics, admin, vac suit, steward, and computer. So they're both like just totally random sets of skills. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to roll on table A because I think it would be good to have somebody with some compatibility. All right, so let's go ahead and check. Is that what I got? It's not. I got streetwise, which actually streetwise might make sense for rebellious by nature. All right, so a level of streetwise as well. A point of streetwise, whatever, however we want to say this. Then final details. How much money does we have? Oh, wow, we have like a super rich party here. 21,000 credits. All right. Now, finally, I do want to roll a life event. Okay, so 2d6. That's 21 this time. 21 indicates learned something you shouldn't know. You fled for your own safety. Learned something you shouldn't know. Fled for his own safety. That is an interesting background. All right. So we've got a pilot, pilot slash captain. We have a navigator. What's the next thing we need? This says, okay, our navigator is Helios. We need an engineer. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to get another set of random names because I didn't particularly like the other random names that were offered to me. And so I'll just regenerate. So I'm looking Kennebec Van Donk. That sounds that sounds ridiculous. Yehoshua Arlotti? No, I don't think so. Es Ia Kadruviat Kadrayatsev. That's an interesting name. Let's do that. Let's do Ia. Ia Kudrayavtsev. Kadrayavtsev is our engineer. All right, so what do we think? Ia. I'm going to say that for some reason it strikes me as more feminine, so we're going to go with female here. 3, so again, a notable hat. And let's get our characteristics. So we've got 8 for strength. Oh, basically a weakling. That's still above average. Not enough to give you a modifier, but above the average range. All right, 5 in endurance, 5 in intelligence. Oh dear. All right, so our engineer's kind of dumb. All right, but more educated than most. So 9 indicating that's going to be +1. 9 indicates a college level of education, effectively a bachelor's degree. Then 6. All right, so generally pretty average for the most part, below average in endurance and intelligence, above average in education, and that would, I guess, I assume that would be the engineering side of things. All right, cool. Next, then, we need to figure out what, okay, get engineering. Again, I think coming from a merchant role makes sense, right? So this person assuming that they came down the merchant track, uh, they would have been a bosun. Was, I guess, the previous rank, right? But I'm more interested in role than in rank. All right. Next thing, let's get height and weight, right? So again, get our choice of strength or dexterity. There's not a huge difference. Let's make her a little bit shorter, right? So on 7 times 3 is 21, 21 plus, so that'd be 165 centimeters, which translates to 5'5". All right, and then weight, not out of shape because they would all have to be under 7 for them to be considered out of shape. So they're not, which means then I do strength plus endurance. It's a 13 times 4. 13 times 4 would give me 52. 52 then plus 14 would be 66. So 66 kilograms or 145 pounds. All right. Psych evaluation. Again, rebellious. I'm going to say right now, I do not envy Laurentina. Like, our crew is rebellious by nature and get themselves into trouble. Which I mean, hey, we're independent traders. I suppose that uh, comes with the territory. All right, so age, this would indicate late 20s to early 30s, so roughly 30 years old. So is a little bit younger. All right, and again, I think doing the merchant track makes sense, right? So we'll take first, I guess we need to have that one level of vac suit. That's a requirement. Then we also get engineering is one of the options. So I'm going to choose that at a level 3. We also can choose, I think it makes sense to me to have like comms be something that would be part of what they can do. So comms, maybe 2 there. And then I have the one bonus skill. This one, I actually want a level of electronics because that would give us kind of general repair abilities. Not so it's not just fixing engines, but in general being able to fix stuff. Okay. Then let's get money. Okay, this person is not as wealthy. So we've got 6 times 3, that'd be 18. 18 times 500 would be 9,000 credits. Okay. All right. Last thing then would be life event. That's it. The brain hit pause for a minute. All right, so if we got 22 again. So another person had to create a new identity. Okay, so just to make that, because I'm running a ship of hats here, the notable hat, I'm going to say it looks like a train engineer hat. It's had to create a new identity. So why? Well, obviously she was not a thief, or at least not a very good one. All right. So I want to say we already have somebody who's on the wrong side of the law. Well, let's have somebody on the wrong side of some criminal organization. All right, so I had to create a new identity because they're running from some criminal organization. We can flesh out details as the game progresses. Okay. So we're kind of providing little seeds here that may or may not end up growing into something more significant. All right, so we've got this one. All right, we have an engineer now. Next thing we need. So engineer is Ia, not her original name. And then now we need a medic. So medic is our next person. Again, let's start with the name. Okay. Name, random name generator tells me. Um, I don't actually like the names that I have here. Let's do this one. Okay, so we've got Vitold Mahela. There we go. And I'm going to say that's a masculine name. All right. Next then, appearance, anything notable? 6 would indicate notable hair. All right. Then stats. 4 for strength. All right, sure, that's a -1. Um, 8 for dex. That's not bad. 5 for endurance. That's also -1. Intelligence? 10. Okay. Okay. Well, it's good that our medic is not stupid. Oh, 2 for education though. So okay, that's really interesting because now we have a medic here who's apparently very intelligent, but like never completed a high school level of education. Actually, education is quite deficient. Right? So that suggests to me they're kind of a hack, but apparently a reasonable one, I suppose. So I got them all through on the job training or something. All right, height and weight. All right, so height, I could even either make them slightly above average in height or really short. I'm gonna make them slightly above average. So let's do, so it's 8 times 3, which would be 24, 24, and then add the 154, so that'd be 178 centimeters tall, which translates to, so I'm, okay, it's 5'10". Right, and then weight, okay, they're not out of shape, so we would not calculate that way. So it's just strength plus endurance. They're going to be fairly thin. So it's 9 times 4 is 36, plus 24, that comes to 60 kilograms. Yeah, so actually quite thin. Oh, wrong calculator, Professor. So 60 kilograms, 132 pounds. There we are. Psych evaluation, 5, so stubborn and strong-willed. This might be because I've been watching Starfleet Academy, but I have in mind here the Doctor. All right. So now for us to have medical, that is something a merchant background does not actually make sense here. But I did want to do age. Age 2, so roughly 30. Okay. Well, that's a fairly high social score too, so they probably have lots of money. Anyway, so I need medical. Now, medical, there's not a lot of paths to get medical. So one would just be citizen. Another would be, well, I'm really having to look because there are very few. Spacer, which that feels unlikely given the relatively low endurance, low strength. Because normally spacer is what is used for, say, somebody in the Navy, that kind of thing. Right. So, yes, like interstellar Navy or Space Force, and that doesn't make any sense. Primitive, definitely not with medical skills. Scavenger, no. Technician, no. Technician doesn't count either. Scientist. Scientist is the other option. So it sounds like it's just, I think I only listed 2 options. It's either citizen, right, or scientist. To me, scientist would be, I have a hard time believing scientist that is, that you professionally were a scientist. I don't think that makes sense given the high level of medical skill, right? So instead, I'm going to treat this person as a citizen, which a citizen with social 10 would be, like a citizen or civilian, yeah, whatever, would be considered kind of manager. So it's managerial kind of role. All right, so automatic skill they get is vehicle, so they get one level of that. I'm going to say yes, they also get 3 levels of medical because I want to give us the greatest chance of surviving. I also want to give loader is an option, which is something that can be useful for loading the ship. So I think it would be good to have somebody that had that. Now, I was planning to maybe tie that in with our steward, but I think it might actually fit better here. So let's go ahead, loader, and just yeah, let's do one level of loader, one level of mechanical. That would fit with the whole vehicle thing. Right. So this person has like an interesting civilian background where somehow they've picked up a lot of medical knowledge, right? But I'm going to say that they picked this up very informally. Well, well, all the other stuff that was more formally what they were doing. It's like they were working in a warehouse or something like that. So they had to operate vehicles, right? They have kind of loader ability again, like in working in a warehouse would do that. Mechanical ability, having to repair machinery and the like. So all of this fits right with that type of background. And then final details and a life event. So final details, I need to roll for money. Oh yeah, so we've got 50, so 25,000 credits. Okay. And then I need life event is number 36 on this list. It's a D66 table where you roll 2d6, read them in order. Okay, so 36, realized your parents hate you. Why? Okay, I've got an answer to that one. So I think the reason his parents hate him, I'm going to play off this, the high social score here, right? So social score of 10, right? So that means most likely you've come from a relatively prominent family, right? So here's somebody from a relatively prominent family who decides, right, to drop out of high school, right? So has basically no education and go work in a warehouse. And I think that that's it. It's more like it's not like you did something wrong in any kind of objective sense, but rather you are not living up to their expectations, right? So I think that's more what it is. Right? Hit you for failing to complete an education and working below your station. So I think it's more resentment than anything else. All right, so that is our medic. Now, notable hair. I'm gonna say with this, I think I think he's gonna go with hair that is I want to say like a mohawk or something like that. Let's go mohawk. Right. So that would indicate a certain level of rebelliousness, but it's not so much rebellion as a refusal to adhere to social um, conventions or what have you. All right. Oh, and I just realized I lost my camera. What happened there? Hmm. Pause for a second while I work this out.
Sorry, you didn't get me talking to you.
No. Oh, actually, just did. All right. So now I need one last person. This is going to be our steward. All right, so let's figure out some about them. So first, as always, I'm going to go with a name. Um, I'm going to go with Adelina Barron. I like Adelina. Looks like a feminine name to me, so we'll go with that. Then appearance. So notable bald. Okay. I didn't realize bald was actually an option because I was thinking about making notable hair. Um, that, so bald, and I think this is actually shaven probably. All right, let's get some stats. All right, strength is a 6, dex is a 9, so that's a +1 on dex. Endurance is an 8, no modifier on that. Intelligence is an 8, and so just slightly above average in these things. Uh, Education's a 3, so we have another very uneducated person. Is 3 a -1 or -2? I think it's just -1. Yeah, it's -1. Okay. All right. And then Soch is 6. Okay. And so generally fairly average, slightly higher in dexterity, and definitely below average on education. So any skills that she picked up were informal. So easygoing, always relaxed. Okay. Right? Like the right, suggesting that it might snap. Then next thing I'm gonna do, I'm trying to figure out. Oh, wait, great. One, oh, okay, so this is a young one, so early 20s. So roughly 20 years old, so 20, 25, something in that range. Now, who has the ability to get the steward ability? So she is somehow trained in this. That is not a very common skill, just as I'm looking at these various options. Like even merchants apparently typically do not have the steward skill, even though they might have people on their ships. Okay. What? I don't think steward actually is a an ability for any of the careers. As I'm looking, is definitely not for agent, definitely not for belter, definitely not for explorer or citizen or fixer or marine. Okay, that is really interesting. Because either I am just not seeing it, but it is hiding there somewhere, or it is just not there. Uh, and it looks like it is literally just not there. It's not an option. So we know then what her bonus skill is going to be. And then we have to come up with a totally different background, right? So, all right. So who might have a reasonable dex and would end up on this ship? I honestly, I kind of want to make sure that I have somebody that can do some kind of combat because we don't have any of those people. Uh, so that's what I'm thinking now. So might she have been? So somebody, can you have both melee and gun combat? That'd be good. So a rogue would do that. Yeah, let's do rogue. That'd be kind of fun. Okay, so rogue and by 6 soch with a rogue. So enforcer, right, would be what her role would have been. Okay, and that would like match very well with things like so. We've got first, obviously, a level of streetwise that has to happen, and then we also have. I want to have some gun combat, a couple levels of that, a couple levels of melee combat. I'm gonna. Oh wait, no, 2 levels of each of those. Let's do that. Okay, and then I want to do like a level of security. I think that'd be kind of fun. So those are 6 main levels, and then she also picks up as a bonus 1 level of steward, which amusingly is not going to make her a very good steward. Like she's not going to be able to handle very many people, just because of how the steward skill relates to passengers and all of that. Oh well, it's what it is. How many credits does she have? 3 times 6 times 500. That would be 9,000 credits. Right. And life events. So what kind of life event do we have for Adelina? It's 41, which I don't think that I've done 41 before. Fell in love. It ended badly roll, due to a romantic rival. Okay. Ended badly due to a romantic rival. So this implies that there are two other people out there, right, that have some connection, right, to Adelina. We don't know who they are at this point, but there we go. So we now have our entire crew here. Our steward is Adelina. Our medic is, what was his name again? Vitold. Wonderful. All right, so we've got our ship. Now what are they going to name the ship? Okay, so Laurentina has this ship. What is she going to name it? It's a trading ship of some kind. I don't know. I thought that I had somewhere just like a list of random names for ships. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not going to bother looking for it. Let's look the. It's really silly, like big money, but that sounds ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. How about the? I mean, okay, now I'm tempted to call it the Enterprise. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. After all, it's free enterprise, right? Or a free trader vessel. So yeah, okay. After all, it's a totally different universe, so I don't think that they would be aware that, in our universe we have a TV show where that'd be a really significant ship name. All right, so that's what I'm gonna do. Okay. Oh, I do have some other things I need to do here in terms of calculating costs and deciding what that looks like. I also want to talk real quickly. So what I've decided to do, right, I was thinking about what I would do in terms of the location where we are. So I decided I want to stick with a system that I'd already made, right? So this was the system that Wilbur Orla and friends started in, right? So we already have some of it fleshed out. And I thought that might be kind of a fun thing to do. So I had to make a couple changes because this was produced using the Cepheus Universal system rather than the Cepheus Lite system. For the most part, I didn't like change any stats, but what I did do was add a couple of trade codes because there are a couple types of trade codes that just you don't use in Cepheus Universal that you do use that actually are relevant for the trade system in the core system reference document, and therefore also in Cepheus Lite, right? So I needed to figure out are these, I think, high tech, low tech. I needed to add those codes, and I also needed to add high population, low population codes. So I've added all those. It's not something that was obviously going to affect the map. I also drew in here trade routes and communication routes. So communication routes will exist between anything that has a level A starbase and anything that has a level B starbase with a naval base attached to it, right? So you can see that here I just drew them as these dark lines right there. So there are communication routes that run between these areas. Now, might see that's a fairly large jump there. So naturally, people who say carry mail or whatever between these points are going to be making stops along the way. Another thing was to create trade routes, and there are different types of trade codes that create trade routes between different types of worlds. It turns out here we didn't have a lot of those, so there will be a trade route that exists on a more regular basis between 503, which doesn't have a name yet, and Tanis, which was one of the early planets we started. It might have been the first planet we had. And then also there are a couple trade routes connecting Masuyama to Chozaliv, and then also Masuyama to what is it, Zalianas or something like that? Yeah, I think it's Zalianas. Okay. Right, so there are a couple trade routes. Um, centered around Masuyama, which is like the major star base here, and also is kind of the capital of this subsector. Now we know that if I went off to what I'm thinking of as kind of galactic east, right, we would hit an unexplored sector or only partially explored sector of Eucoria, but we're not really going there because there's not trade to be had with unexplored planets, right? So we're going to be trading within this subsector is the plan. Okay. All right, so that is that decision. So now let's go ahead and talk about costs, right? So costs. So we have three different options that are presented by Solo with the Star Traders campaign. Right, so here we go. So one thing we could do, we could calculate and apply all costs and revenues. We could just do average costs and revenues. So that'd be things like, well, just assume that you just have a bunch of middle passage passengers, your low berths are always full, everybody just wants to go to the next space, cargo space gets filled up automatically with freight, that kind of stuff. Or we could just ignore all of that and say, yeah, we're only going to think about speculative cargo, that's it, we'll just assume everything else balances out. Uh, I want to do accounting for fun, which is a weird thing to say, but I think that that does add a level of granularity, right, to what's happening here, and because of that level of detail, I think it adds perhaps a level of realism to what is happening. So but that is something that we're actually going to that Laurentina is going to have to think about is do we actually have enough people to fill the ship right now? And if we don't, should we go with some empty rooms, or what should we? How should we handle right the situation that we are in? Where should we go next, based on making sure that it has enough people there right, to actually support the type of stuff we want to do? Right, so I think that that is the path I want to go, which means now to make my life easier, I'm just going to calculate what the operating costs are right now. Right, so in order to find the cost, I'm just going to go through, there's an operating cost table in the solo supplements. I'm just kind of walking through that. And so first thing, our mortgage is one 240th of the ship's purchase price, right? So uh, the way this works is very much like in Traveler, where it's a 40-year period, right, but you end up paying twice over because of interest, right? So I'm going to go ahead and look that up. So it's a 61 million credit ship. So 61 million divided by 240, whatever that comes to. Again, so I'm just gonna make it 61,000 divided by 240. So it's going to be 254,000 credits a month. All right. Maintenance is 0.1% of the ship price, but divided by 12. All right, so again, that's 61 million. 0.1%. Okay, so 61 million. Is like triple O, 0.001, and divide that by 12. So that's going to be another 5,000 per month. That's actually really, that feels like strangely small. It makes me wonder if I did some math wrong. So, but no, that's not that small. So it's supposed to be 1/1000th of the ship price. 61,000 divided by 12. Yeah, so that's about right. And then salaries. So I need to add up the people that I have here on board. I have my pilot will not take a salary because she's also the owner. Our astrogator will, so it's 5,000. Our engineer will, it's another 4,000. Our medic will, that's another 3,000. Our steward will, which is another 2,000. So I added up 5, 4, 3, and 2, 14,000 in salaries for our crew. And so add this all up, and we've got it's going to be 200, I believe 73. Wait, let's get that right. It's 19, yeah, 273,000 credits per month in just our standard operating costs. But then operating costs per trip. Right, so we need here, so life support is 1,000 per stateroom, 1,000 per passenger, 500 per low berth passenger, and then we also have to pay for fuel, depending whether it's refined or unrefined. Yeah, because I don't think that this ship, as far as I know, it does not mention anything about being fitted with fuel scoops or anything like that. Right, so we're not going to be saving money that way. This is going to be rough. Huh. All right, so I think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right, to calculate right now. Uh, because I mean, it's going to vary based on the trip and how many passengers we have, right? So life support, I guess I could just put it in for the staterooms themselves. So it's 10K for the staterooms. Refined and well, I guess refined or unrefined fuel. We can do that math. So it's 44 tons of fuel. So multiply that by 500. So it'd be 22,000 credits if we go with refined fuel. Unrefined fuel would only be it's only 100 per, so it's 4.4 thousand credits. All right, and then we also need to just add in 1K credits, right, per passenger plus 500 credits per low berth passenger. There we go. So we've got that math all worked out. So I think that is more or less the setup. So the last thing I need to do is to assign a starting location. So like looking here, I'm torn between two things. So one is that I know that there are more trade routes connected to Matsuyama. The other is that Annis is more toward the center, so I might be able to like jump other places more easily from there. But I think it makes sense. Let's start in Matsuyama. Let's do that. Let's start in the capital and get going from there. All right, so just gonna make a quick note that we are starting in Matsuyama. Okay, so this is day one. So there's month one, day one. Start in Matsuyama. And that is where we're going to pick up when I actually start playing in the next session. So for now, this is Prof E signing off.